So, in October, probably at the end of October, we're going to get an autumn statement. And in that autumn statement, we are bracing ourselves for the possibility that Rachel Reeves, who is the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, is going to make changes to the way we pay tax and the taxes that we pay. One of the things that is in the crosshairs at the moment is pension relief or tax relief on your pensions. And that's what I want to talk about in this video because there are some really interesting theories going around what might change in October. And what I want to do is just talk you through how pension relief basically works and then introduce what is being mooted she's going to introduce as a potential change. Now, straight off the bat, it doesn't matter which way she goes, it's going to be controversial because the reality is we have a black hole that we need to plug. And unfortunately, it means that not giving people as much towards their pension by way of tax relief feels like it's one of the most logical things to do. I mean, if you look at entities like Nest Pensions, for example, they're taking in $500 million every single month. So think about the tax relief on that number. It's pretty huge. So it is a viable avenue for the government to save money, but it's going to be really controversial. And we will talk about this. And please do let me know your opinion in the comment section as well, because tax relief it's an incentive for you to put money into your pension. And we already know that people aren't saving at the rate that they need in order to have a comfortable retirement. So will this potentially deter people from paying into a pension and just make people feel as like, well, why even bother? This is a really tricky thing. But when you look at the whole pension landscape as a whole, we need to have some really serious discussions around the fact that we need to take more control, we need to take charge, because it feels like the government is pulling the assistance and the aid that has been available for a very, very long time now because of women in such dire straits. So let's just jump into pension relief and how that basically works. So everybody gets pension relief, and it's based on the amount of tax that you pay. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer at 20%, if you're a higher rate taxpayer at 40%, or an additional rate taxpayer at 45 plus, you get your tax relief added back in. It's They say it's tax relief, but it's not really tax relief because you pay tax, but they're going to give it back to you. So it's almost like a tax rebate into your pension. Now, how it works is if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you pay £100 in to your pension. With the tax relief that is added in, your actual contribution is 80 quid, right? So you're getting your £20 back on the £100 that you would have paid tax on, right? And the same applies if you are an additional rate or a higher rate. If you're a higher rate paying 40% tax, the £100 means that actually you're going to get 40 quid back. So it only costs you £60 to pay into that pension, right? So it's across the bands. And that in itself is a little problematic because people at the high end, so people who are at the higher rate and additional rate tax of the tax system, effectively get more from the government. And like I've already said, just looking at Nest alone, monthly taking on about £500 million, that's quite a lot of money that the government is having to fork out to aid people's pension planning or pension provisions in the future. And here's a little stat that I just want to share with you. This is from Hargreaves Lansdown. Let me just read this to you right here. It says here in this column, private pension stats show that an estimated 56% of income tax relief was given at higher rate, with an additional 7% at additional rate. So this means that, what's that? Or over 60%, about 63% of tax relief is given at the higher tax brackets, costing the government quite a lot of money. So this is what is rumored is likely going to happen. And this is what we think we'll see in October. We think that we're going to see some kind of reduction in the tax relief that the government is going to give people when they contribute into their pensions. And because of that stat that we've just spoken about there, it is very, very likely that they're going to trim at the top end. So they're going to trim it for high rate and additional rate taxpayers. And what is being mooted at this point in time is that they will likely introduce a uniform tax relief across all of the tax bands. And if I just bring back up this article, you'll see what this essentially looks like as a suggestion. So it says here, one option available to Reeds would be to cut pension relief to 20%. That would be very, very unpopular because it means that if you're earning additional rate or high rate tax bracket earnings where you're paying that much tax, you're not getting any help at all, really, to be honest. So that would be very unpalatable. But it just says here, this would be no change for basic rate taxpayers, obviously, but it will be a huge reduction for higher and additional rate taxpayers who receive 40% and 45% relief on their pension contributions. A less painful option, and this is what we think will happen, would be to implement a 30% rate across the board. This will be great news for basic rate taxpayers whose £100 pension contribution would only cost them 70 rather than 80. So what they're suggesting here is a blanket 30% across all of the tax bands. And this will be good news for basic rate taxpayers because it means that you're going to get an extra 10% essentially um, put into your pension as part of that pension tax relief from the government. It will impact people on higher wages. And this is where you get into kind of like this conversation around, okay, it's good news for those who are basic rate taxpayers on the lower arm of like earnings, which could be a good thing because you can argue, and I would argue actually, that those people need more help than those people who are going to be earning at the 45% rate, £150,000 plus. I mean, at £150,000 plus, you also lose your personal allowance. So at the top end, it's not good. It's not palatable in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate within that. But as we know, at this point in time, Labour are going to have to make really difficult decisions. So I'd love to know from you, and if you are in that higher tax bracket, that 45%, God forbid you're in that position where you're earning over 150 and you're now kind of in that 60% range, how do you feel about this? Because this is going to be a pretty bitter pill to swallow. You're already paying pretty significant taxes anyway, and now they're taking away the tax relief potentially for any contributions that you're making into your pension. So you're not going to be able to save as much as you would normally or would have with the tax relief going in. Very controversial at the top end. At the bottom end, basic rate taxpayers, this is going to be welcomed. This will be good news. One thing I would rather not see, though, is to see this as a wealth tax, a tax on the wealthy, because I genuinely believe that people who are earning, £150,000 plus, you can't really class them as wealthy people. They are just hardworking individuals who have had to work their asses off to get to a point where they have really good earnings. And so I don't want to see it passed off as a wealth tax, but let's see how they package this up. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to find out in October, but this is what they're suggesting. This is what we think they're going to do. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and let's have a conversation about it. Catch you later.